Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and as usual, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Hello and welcome, everybody. Tonight we're talking about running D&D alliances, and how you can use alliances in your game, and how they might inspire new adventures in your Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, alliances can be really taken from a variety of different perspectives. Whether it's something that the party forms an alliance with, could be a former enemy, or people within the town, or a neighboring organization that he's been working in a lot of different ways, or from the GM standpoint is what organizations and alliances get formed throughout the course of the game or ahead of time.
I feel like a fairly common trope in D&D is there's something that's going to happen, and the players must go out and procure allies. So procuring each of those allies becomes a challenge and adventure in and of itself, where part of it is convincing possibly a neighboring kingdom or faction that we're doing that they're needed, and this is why they should join forces, right? And it could just be a diplomacy mission where you're going to talk it out, or it might be like, nope, the only way we can deal with you is if you're one of us, so you must go through this complicated, dangerous rite of passage in order to make that happen. Which also is something that I believe I've seen in works of fiction as well.
Yeah, it's a pretty common or standard thing that, all right, I'm not going to side with you unless you can that you're worthy enough to belong to us. I mean, look at your own game in the early on part where we had to deal with the goat orcs, the Ullen guy. Let's say, and most of the adventuring party was successful and proved their value or their worth to them.
Well, all in all, you all passed the test. Some of you just passed it better than others.
Okay.
As a group, you passed the test, but individuals didn't stand out. Weren't rewarded, and so they were going to have to work a little bit harder to work their way back into the good graces of the tribe and becoming members of the Olin guy.
But I mean, those kind of things. It could, as you said, it could be just a discussion, and literally in my game, there were times where you had to go and talk to people and get advice or get things, and to work your way down this quest. And it's like, all right, you guys traveled all the way up the mountain across the mile long invisible bridge, and went into the city of glory, and you had to convince the angel there to shed a tear. And that was a little bit of a challenge, a skill test, if you will, to procure that item. But I mean, it could just as easily done the same kind of stuff to convince them of, okay, I don't do mass warfare in D&D. That's a whole different style of game. But if you're in that kind of game and you want to position armies to deal with something, you could do that where it's like, all right, you get the ally on board, and then they'll handle it from there. And all you have to do is handle that negotiation, whether it's a trial, a test, a quest, what have you.
Now, in the invasion of the planet of the Tarask, by James and Arcaso, we played in that adventure, and one of the things that happens is a platoon of gifts show up, and they kind of like warn what's going to happen, and that's an invasion of these giant monsters, which turns out they're Tarasks. And the players, they're in Waterdeep, or no, Baldur's Gate. They're in Baldur's Gate or Waterdeep, one of them, I forget which one. But you have access to all the different factions, and you have so much time, and you have the option of going to the different going to a faction and trying to get their help. So, each of us, went and picked a faction that either existed or some of us might have made up their own, and went and plead to them and pled their case, and it was just a role playing thing. And then, like, if James liked the role playing, essentially you would convince them. If not, then they didn't help. So we were able to get a bunch of help for defending the city against the Tarrasques. Yes, plural. So I feel like Forgotten Realms has tons and tons of different factions in it. The Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, again, all the different guilds, Eberron, tons of these, and there's no reason why you can't use these in your adventures, and that's where making alliances are going to come into play. But also, you could also try to sabotage alliances as well. If you're running a political game, or even like Eberron is very like Cold War-ish, where it is after the last war. So sometimes destroying an alliance can be just as valuable to one side as creating new ones.
Oh, completely. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head with the whole political game. Politics is all about forming and breaking alliances, and the more political power one person has attached themselves to, like, the more favors that they can ask, the more leverage that can be applied to individuals or other organizations. So like, building that structure winds up being super important. So on that other side, tearing things down so that your enemies don't have the ability to have as strong a platform, can be a lot of fun to play and very detrimental to their cause.
If you look at like Game of Thrones is a great example. Like the Starks did so terrible early on because of their inability to navigate alliances and to really understand what was going on politically.
Right.
By the time they figured it out, like people are losing their heads already.
Literally.
Literally.
Uh,
So that's a great. Great Game of Thrones is a great example how those things can change things as well.
and it also shows that alliances definitely have the ability to deal with an ebb and flow and a change. I mean, if you look at a handful of the characters and how they're attached here and then over here and then over here, and it's this big whirling circle. I thought it was really well done.
Uh, I also kind of think of two other things that are very unrelated. Um, Bregan D'Arth and and Braveheart.
Okay.
When they befriend the king of the island, and they just think he's crazy in Braveheart, and later on when the Irish are brought in as as mercenaries, and they just turn mid fight on the English. It is a good example of an alliance that was struck
Right.
twice, really. Struck and broken. Also, Bregan D'Arth was kind of infamous for that as well. When
Yeah.
one of the houses would hire them, and if Bregan D'Arth switches allegiance, which they've done in the past, it instantly turns the tide of the battle.
And Jarlaxle, the Drow, in my opinion, far more impressive than that range of the fights with two scimitars. Was definitely more charismatic and more influential in a lot of the different things that he did. And I thought it was really cool that he managed to navigate and basically create this position of power as a male in that female dominant society, and then to strike that kind of power that he does have the ability to change the course of battle and who lives and who dies. Yeah, I mean, that's super super powerful.
So I mean, we kind of been talking like kind of like big, large scale and sweeping alliances. But what about like just in your D&D game, right? Like how what are some smaller ways that we can think about using it to kind of spice up the gameplay at the table, right? Even at the early levels as well.
So, you could, keep things, in the party and just be like, all right, well, you and I fight together. You and I look out for each other. Um, you know, I'm not trying to impose any kind of ideas of turn on your party and, inter party conflict, but, having someone who, always has your back is kind of a necessary thing when you're typically going into a life and death peril. And I know in the one game that I was in, there was a pair of players who were like, look, we trained together, we fought together, our whole combat career, so to speak. And they talked to the DM and they're like, look, if we always drop down to whoever rolled the lower initiative, can we move and fight together? And if we can position ourselves, can we get, a flanking and do advantage kind of stuff? And, the DM allowed it. So like that was, in my opinion, a small little alliance of these two characters always doing something. There was, a mechanical advantage and a role play advantage into, how they built and designed and played their characters. But I mean, it could, just as easily, be all right. I'm the cleric. I'm going to form an alliance with this player. He's contracted me for service. He's going to get my healing spells first. Whatever it is that you want to do to show that relationships are forming.
And we've seen it happen time and time again at our table anyway. Like certain characters just seem to have a stronger connection to each other. Sometimes it's because of the players having a stronger connection. Other times it's just because it's the characters that kind of evolve at the table as well. A lot of times if me and Ryan play together, we'll kind of do stuff only because we're just familiar with each other's role-playing style, and sometimes we create characters that kind of synergize without really trying to. Basically in your game now that kind of happened. We
Right.
We didn't really create our characters together, but both of our backstories kind of worked out well for tying them together, with them both being more martial characters.
So during the session 0, you were just like, all right, do we want to connect these together? And you became half brothers, quote unquote.
Yeah, yeah. Not related by mother or father. Like in that, in that game, we both decided we had an adoptive father, and we just made it the same adoptive father, Captain Dad.
And those things are great. Dawnbringers is kind of off until we turn the new year, but like there are constantly evolving and changing relationships in that game. And it's fun. I find it amusing that at its core, when I first joined that game, Jeremy from Erasmus Expeditions and myself were both playing a dwarven ancestral guardian barbarian, but our characters are so different from each other. How we go into our rage, to backgrounds, and even like the sub race of dwarf that we're both playing. So while 5 levels of barbarian all exactly the same, we're like, all right, well, we're going to be cousins and we're going to build this relationship. And there's a time where we've gotten into typical dwarven antics where we're playing gags on each other, and then there's times that we're just drinking and having a grand old time.
In your current game, like, our party came together because we basically all were summoned to do a task, and we're the ones that accepted it. We did it, and that kind of happens before the game starts.
Right.
But then because of that, we started kind of like forming alliances within the city itself, within the town. But because of we found this threat and we're trying to eliminate it. So right now we kind of have this alliance with the mage school, which escapes my memory. The name escapes my memory right now.
I think you guys usually refer to it as the academy. I have got it over there on my notes.
Is it like Thunderstone Academy or something like that?
I think that's it. I think it's the Thunderstone Academy. I don't know whether somebody was looking at my gaming shelf or what, but it's like Thunderstone Magic Academy. Is it?
Yeah. Mike Hunt just appeared in the chat and he's upset. There are no flames or dragons on anyone's shirts.
Dude, I'm wearing a Christmas hat.
Quick, set it on fire.
Here, there is now a dragon on my shirt.
I guess that is true. He's not wrong there. There is a dragon on your shirt. Yeah, the live chats are a little more relaxed. We go less formal. Although you're wearing a button-up shirt.
I am wearing a button-up
Actually, you have more formal.
I flipped the table.
What did you just come from church, Ted? What's going on?
No, I figured this is our Christmas. I guess our Christmas live chat because we're not going to be here next week. So I figured I would put on the nice shirt, put on the Santa hat, and since it's Christmas, talk about the different giveaways and things that have come into the Nerdarchy that will eventually be disseminated to our lovely fans and whatnot.
Yeah. Next week we are taking off from the live chat, and then after that we'll have some kind of biggish news. So in your game, we actually had like a political uprising, a small tiny one, right? It's like there was this organization that was anti-academy, anti-mage, and and the rhetoric was kind of like, oh, these guys, all they do is take. They don't give anything back to the city. They just use us. Blah blah blah. So we kind of like found their secret meeting. Their anti-magic clan meeting, and infiltrated it and like discovered who was who was in charge of it, and their leader, who turns out like he wasn't even from this town. He was from someplace else. And, we had to try to negotiate the peace before anything actually happened. Because we didn't want to have the anti-academy mobs roaming the street while at the same time while we're trying to put down the big bad who used to run the academy. So we didn't want it to help him stage a coup.
I loved, the fact that you guys all did all of this work to be like, all right, this is totally a trap. They're gonna, spring this whole thing. Like you even built this whole bird's nest to be out. That's your typical thing. You're always out of combat. So it's like, all right, I'm gonna build this little perch, this bird's nest, to be able to be out of the range and look down and be able to see everything and be able to shoot whoever I need to shoot. And it was just a conversation.
So, okay, there's something in the chat I want to address real quick. A couple things, actually. So, Comrade2261, Merry Christmas, everyone. I read that wrong at first. I mixed up those letters a bit. Added one. I'm like, that's a different holiday. I don't know how merry that's going to be. And then Kyle Ellis, we need a Nerdarchy holiday stream like the Fireplace Channel, Holiday Fishbowl, or Game of Kittens. Yeah, but I agree, but I want it to just be like dragons doing strafing runs and peasants for some reason. That sounds festive.
You could always just try and grab those things from Game of Thrones, just be like, all right, there it is.
yeah, just the last episode pretty much.
Well, no. I mean, there was one from earlier on that Jamie barely survived.
And also, Rivers RP Channel, how often do you guys play? It kind of varies. Like, this past weekend, I played like 3 times. Ted played twice. Now I might not play. I may not play for a week or two now. I don't know. Like, so for a while there, like I was playing every week with Saver Dice, and I was playing with your monthly game. For the longest time, we were playing 3 games. We were playing a game a week for 3 weeks, and then there was like a week off usually.
Right.
And you know, it'd be also kind of like it wouldn't be too off for us to then have other games just thrown in there as well.
Right.
So right now, I feel like our gaming has slowed down a little bit. At least mine has.
So I run a game in person once a month. That Dave and Ryan and a handful of others are in. It's not recorded. We occasionally talk about it. Here on the stream. We actually only have 2 more. I was going to say episodes, but only 2 more sessions left before that game is done. You guys put me on a 12-session contract, and I'm like, all right, I got to make this happen. And I was definitely a little flummoxed as I'm like, all right, how are all the pieces going to fall into place? And now I'm really happy with where things were, or where things are, and I know what I'm doing from here. But I run the RPG Crate game once a month, and that is streamed. It's actually going to be this Friday. If you guys want to tune into session 3, the adventuring party has now finally named themselves. They are the Chaos Crew, and there's a lot of fun stuff happening in that. I think that the characters or the players built characters that are really meshing well this time. Not that they didn't before, but like it's ramped up. The dynamics are a lot more interesting in my opinion. I then play with some of those players weekly on Thursday on the Mini Terrain Domain channel. You can always go check out the Dawnbringers. We're off for a few weeks. We don't come back, I think, till whatever the second Thursday is. I want to say the 9th. But so yeah, I've got a number of games that go on. Occasionally we play, pick up games here and there. Like, we talked last night that Sunday we had played, on a game that will appear on the World Anvil channel at some point in time in the near future. You can stay tuned to social media when we know more information. We'll announce it there. And then I run occasionally a game for the kids at home.
Yeah, for me, I run like I just call it the family game. It's my nephew, my son, my wife, and one of my son's friends. That's kind of ramped up a bit because we played like 3 times in November, but I think it was all in the span of like 10 days. Because we ended up playing for my son's birthday on the 30th. We played Thanksgiving later that night, and then we played like the Friday before that. So that seems to be ramping up a bit. I have to figure out what's going on with my game that has 1 session left, which I feel like just hit a new complication.
Yes, and sad as that is, it's certainly worth putting off. Ironically, as I looked at the fact that we've got that game on hold at the moment, and we finished up session 10, this past weekend. I'm like, I wonder, am I going to finish a second game before Dave finishes that first?
You might, man. It's looking that way. I think we have to like push that through. We got to talk to all parties involved to make sure that happens probably sooner rather than later.
If only there was a Facebook chat that we could just ask a simple.
If only. Yeah. Well, I've just been thinking about it, and I don't know how well that's going to go, but.
Well, I mean, you can just be like, hey, look, no need to, apologize or whatever have you. I'm just curious. What is this looking like? And
yeah. And we're just kind of talking back and forth. One of the members in our group had gotten very sick and got better and got sick again. So we're trying to figure out how to accommodate everything, wrap up this game, and also be compassionate to our group. So, because, the thing that's more important than the D&Ds is actually the people that play the D&Ds with you.
Yeah, your friends. I mean, that's, it all boils down to friendship and relationships, which tie into our theme of alliances.
Yeah. Ted, you can be stabbed at any time with the right alliance.
Should I use the knife?
Oh, no. Maybe.
That was a little bit of a Teaser, because it's it got pulled out because it's supposed to be used for tomorrow's film shoot.
For a prop,
For a prop.
for our really bad acting.
Hey, I wouldn't call it really bad acting, just bad acting.
Terrible, very terrible.
Cheesy, maybe, but bad.
It's like watching robots, especially on my side of the table. But hey, there's only one way to get better, and that is to keep doing it and subjecting our fans to it over and over again.
Well, I mean, we'll create a version of Stockholm if they watch enough of that crappy stuff.
They'll begin to like it. They won't like real acting anymore.
Well, I didn't say that. I just said that they'll like that. I don't know. Comic. Funny. So.
Wait, you know what? We should show some things off real quick because I got a box here. I showed it off last night for the patron-only hangout, but I'll show it off here as well. So I got this big, heavy box that's been sitting around. I forgot about it. It got put to the side, and my wife is like, "Hey, you got this box here." I'm like, "Oh, I apparently opened it at some point, but it had been so long since I opened it, I didn't remember what was in it." So we have a couple things to show off, and I figure we'll show this off. It's the Pathfinder Bestiary for 2nd edition. So really cool. I'm not really a big Pathfinder fan, but I am a huge fan of the books they put together, and the art that they use is fantastic, hands down. And then we got an even bigger book, which would be the actual core rule book. So these are going to go in our giveaway pile, which you may or may not see them in the near future again, because we are running some giveaways every month as usual, and you can always get into those giveaways by going to the Nerdarchy website, and there's a contest section in our menu that you open up. There's a form there. You fill it out. You snail mail it to us, and then you are entered in that month's giveaway, and you can only do one at a time. You can't send us a stack. You can fill out a stack and send them one a month if you like. But then, Ted takes all the names from that stack as well as from our patrons, which if you're a patron, even at the dollar level, you automatically get entered. So it's much easier to do that, and it probably works out to be almost the same. Now, Ted had made a connection at PAX Unplugged, I believe, and some more swag was offered up.
So TNT Laser Works, they do custom engraving and laser cutting and that kind of stuff. And ironically, the guy that I talked to, his name was also Ted. So we got to have a little bit of fun with it. But they sent us a stack of these cool little dials that you can use as hit point trackers, or whether you want to use it for keeping track of your key or your sorcery points. It's got basically it goes from 0 to 999. So I've got 9 of these things. So we are going to wind up adding a random one into basically each of the next 9 months worth of giveaways. So if you want to grab and get any of these kind of things, I picked up their what do you call it, the condition markers that they had. I've been trying to find a good set that I could just look at and evaluate before I spent the monies on it. And I got it from them. They had a good sale at PAX Unplugged. And hey, getting something from another Ted has got to be cool.
You just used them in the last game session too.
I did, yeah. I picked up one of my own as well, and they have cool sayings on them. Mine says, "Here there be dragons." This one says, "The dice giveth and the dice take it away." This one says, "Looks clear, no traps here," and it's got a nat 1 on the D20. Death is only the beginning of a new character. Don't worry, I have a plan. This is how I roll. Keep calm and roll on. This one's a cool saying. May your dice always crit and your spells always hit. Follow me, I know the way, and 'tis but a flesh wound.
So we are also doing a little housekeeping here at Nerdarchy and clearing out the giveaway shelf a bit. So January, we're giving away what we're calling our mega giveaway. It is one of the biggest giveaways we've done in a long time.
It's massive. I'm afraid of what it's going to take box wise to ship everything out that I've got so far. Let alone the fact that we've got 2 more weeks of announcements.
So every week we're adding something new to the pile. So do you have the pile handy?
I have most of the pile. There is a bag full of minis over there that we have showed off. You can, if you want to go see what's there, you can look at our social media. But in addition to that, there is a cool, piece of artwork that there are only a limited number of these. That is, from Dave, Nate, and myself. We've got a couple of books here: Game Master's Toolbox, Skullduggery, Ultimate NPCs, the Book of Lost Spells. We have got the Pathfinder card game and the expansion, Curse of the Crimson Throne. So obviously those are from Paizo.
You look like you're in the middle of an earthquake.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. We've got the Frog Hemoth from Pace Setter Games and Simulations. And as stated, there's a whole bunch of minis that were in that pile as well. There is a dice cup from Easy Roller Dice that's also in that bag of minis. And tonight we are adding from the awesome people over at 1985 Games a sealed thing of Dungeon Craft. These things, since I got my own copy of this, has pretty much been a staple in my game. They are two-dimensional scenes and scatter that you can put out on your battle map. They are double-sided. They are dry erase, I believe, compatible. It says on here somewhere. But you can, it's dry or wet. I'll figure that part out. But they are super awesome. You can use them, and you've got over 1,000 pieces in this small little package. So you cut them out, you use them, and they just all go back in the box, and it's pretty easy to manage. I have mine, set between or sorted between, dungeon, forest, and urban to make it even easier to find. But we're still going to add more things. So, this heavy box of the Starfighter Beginner box. It's got rules. It's got character sheets. It's got pawns. It's got dice. Yeah, I'm having to part with something that's got dice in it, but I'm doing it anyway. So a lot of stuff. All told, we know that we're already well over $500 MSRP for all of the things that we've got in this giveaway. And it's going to keep growing.
So next week, with it being a holiday, we won't be doing a stream, but we'll still add to the pile, and we will just put those pictures up on social media so that you'll be able to find them and see what the horde is. So what we're doing is we're putting it up week by week. We're showing like week 1 picture, week 2, week 3, and then we're doing the massive pile all together just because it amuses us. It makes us happy to do so. So I have no idea where we're going to be at by the time this thing finally finishes in January. But like Ted said, it's probably going to cost us a fortune to ship this. Please, no Japan or Australia.
Japan, UK, and Australia. I'm going to cry. But
yes, yeah.
Other than that, regardless of what happens, we're doing it anyway.
We're doing it anyway.
And as Dave says, you can get in on this by going to the website, doing the form, or just literally go to Patreon. $1 a month automatically enters you into it, and hey, $1 a month gets you into the giveaway as well as an extra chance to game with us. So
yeah, because we do a monthly fan game over there. Also Mondays we do the patron only hangout, which I actually have the wrong overlay up because that's what it says we're doing right now. And I forgot to change it from last night. Also, and also at $2, we actually create products, and we give them to you folks first before they go onto our channel or into our website store. So, Chance Spellbook, gotta ask, how long did it take your channel to blow up? So, the first 6 months of Nerdarchy was crickets. Not even our moms watched. And then this right around 6 months, they dropped the basic rules. We stumbled upon those and like, oh, this is kind of cool, because we didn't know they were making another edition of D&D. To be honest with you, because we were actually playing other role playing games at the time, and we started talking about that, and that garnered a lot of interest. I think a combination of us being the only YouTube channel at the time that was multiple personalities talking at once and talking about D&D really helped. And then from there, we've just steadily grown. I mean, we're going into our 6th year. The May the 4th will be it will be 6 years for us. So I wouldn't say we've ever really blown up. We've just steadily grown and gotten bigger. If I forget what it is, but it's like 16 to 2,000 subs a month has been like our average growth since like the beginning of time for us. Unlike some of the other YouTube channels that like just like shot up overnight and got huge within like the first year, first several months, first several days in some cases. I know, like, it was fun to watch Dingo Doodles grow, because I saw her first video go up. I just randomly happened upon it, and it gone up like that day and had like 3,000 views on it. And I told Nate about it, and the next day I was like, you need to look at this. And it was like 99,000 views overnight.
That's pretty impressive.
So, yeah, and then also like another crazy one is Logan not from XP to level 3, but from RuneSmith. Like he had a pretty impressive growth as well, because he like started a channel and overnight had like 25,000 subs.
We talked about the I don't mean to cut you off, but we talked about the game that we played on Sunday night. Do you realize that Nerdarchy Gamer is in the chat right now?
Yeah, I did just see him.
So Nerdarchy Gamer is the one who ran the holiday game that's going to be on World Anvil that Dave and I played in. Mike, good to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, Michael, what is the name of your game? Because we were trying to think of it last night, and I'm like, we're not really sure. We know it's like you got the toy races, which were really cool. But then I went back and scrolled through my Facebook chat with Michael, and I was like, nothing here says the actual name of the game. It might have been something about the Yule Father.
Yeah, so I thought the Yule Father's Day was what I thought it was.
That actually may be the case. So for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, Sunday night we played a game with Nerdarchy Gamer, which is probably like the middle of the night for him right now. I don't know. Australia time. But we played a holiday game where we all played as toys. I got to play Ted E. Barian, who was a teddy bear and barbarian.
So I was Patches, the doll rogue, or the patchwork rogue.
The Great Toy Caper is what is the name of the adventure. So,
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you so much. And we also had Pops, the wizard in a box.
And we had Jin, the gingerbread person cleric.
Yeah, I think he's just a gingerbread cleric.
Oh, okay. Well, could be.
So Michael says he's renaming it to Dave tries some fruitcake.
There was a lot of antics in that one. So.
There was. Well, so Michael had filled out like the traits on the characters already. He's like, hey, use these if you want to. And I looked at it when he sent me the message. I'm like, I'm not using those. I got my own ideas. And then I saw his, and I was like, I'm totally using these. Because, mine was rough around the edges and has a sweet tooth. And also something about my flaw is I'm afraid children will be afraid of me. But I really leaned into the rough around the edges and the sweet tooth, because that was a lot of fun to play. Especially having a gingerbread cleric in the party.
That was pretty amusing when you were, kind of sort of threatening to eat her.
He showed restraint. Tries not to eat sentient sweets. Except for those Captain Peppermints. Those guys were dicks, and they deserved to be eaten.
Yeah. Spoiler.
So, yeah, spoiler. Yeah, it was a fun adventure. If you guys have like 3 hours to kill, you should check it out when it goes up. I think we had fun playing it. Everyone did a great job.
Even with one of them being wrangled last minute.
Yeah, well, those things always tend to happen. So I think someone got trapped in Albuquerque.
Yeah, it's travel issues. It happens.
So they should have made better alliances.
They should have made better alliances.
Then they could have worked around that.
With my game and the alliances that have happened and not happened and what have you, what do you see with Bolt? What do you see, happening next?
I don't know. We have no idea because where we left off. So Ted, the dick, trapped us in some time warp thing, and we lost like 2 years. So we're gonna finally get back the next session, I believe. Well, maybe we're kind of dawdling because you dangled something in front of us. That some of us just can't resist. So we left off our last session entering a portal. So we enter the portal. We meet up with one of our cleric's god or emissary of their god, and they're like, "Hey, you've been trapped for 2 years, even though it's only been like 5 minutes for you." We're like, "Son of a bitch," and they're like, "You're gonna need help. So here's a market where you can buy magic stuff." And Ted was generous and let us buy a bunch of magic stuff for dirt cheap, in the solar market. But at night it flips to the lunar market where everyone keeps saying it's so bad, such a bad place to be. So now it's like some of us, not all of us, but some of us are like, we need to stay and see what this lunar market's all about. I'm also not convinced that we won't be part of the bad stuff that's roaming around. Especially when Mark comes back into the game. Because Mark's character, my character, and Ryan's character are probably...
assholes?
A little bit. Kind of. We're very self-motivated, I would say. We're self-motivated and slightly me-oriented. We generally do the right thing eventually. But we do try to earn more money doing it than anybody else. And like Ted did mention something about making alliances within the party. We may have done that to try and bamboozle the rest of the party out of more gold. And we're terrible at it, so we generally get caught. But I think it's part of our charm. Unfortunately, we have Emerald of the Light. I think like she just wants to reform us.
It's possible.
And I don't think it's gonna work.
No, I don't think so.
But we're not malicious.
Unless there's profit.
We you know what? We have not been presented with. Well, no, we have been presented with that opportunity, and we've turned it down.
That's true.
We have not.
You have no problem with grave robbing, though.
We do not. They're dead. They're not going to need it. But we will not. We will not ally against our party with the big bad evil guy. We've proven that.
You have proven that.
Even to the point where Ryan's character has acted inappropriately with the hologram of the big bad evil guy's face. So.
Another reason why I'm glad this game is not recorded.
Well, there's definitely some freedom in having a game that's not recorded. Because, go ahead.
No, I was saying it's true.
Every session, you can just count on Occam to do something inappropriate with his penis. Is pretty much what's going to happen. What are you going to
do? Be thankful that there's only 2 more sessions left, and then I'm done with Occam.
Unless we renew.
unless you guys decide to somehow keep the game going.
Yeah. Besides, you know what? The dead weren't going to use those funds, and And we're waging a war against an evil, perverted wizard that's like corrupting things. And had we not robbed the dead, we would have had a lot less money when we went to the solar market.
That is true.
So really, we're like a stimulus package for the economy, in that market that the light sent us to. So really, ultimately, we serve good.
Dead Aussie Gamer, what worthwhile adventure hasn't stolen from the dead? Michael's got your back.
That's true. Although I think you punked out a little bit. You should have stole their items.
Huh?
I think you punked out a little bit. You should have stole their items.
You think I should have not let them gotten them back?
Maybe some of them.
Oh well, I was in a. This session was a giving session, so
For the holidays.
for the holidays, yeah.
So Ted's favorite monster now, I think, is the withholder. But it loses its bite if it doesn't actually ever really truly withhold.
Well, I mean, I didn't like. I don't know. First off, Deck of Many Hit Point Press. They created this awesome thing in their deck of monsters called the Withholder. It's a knockoff of the Beholder. You've got this sphere, and it's a giant mouth, and instead of eye stalks, it's just got arms.
And a vacuum cleaner mouth instead of sharp pointy teeth.
It's got sharp pointy teeth and what have you. But I saw them at a convention. They had this poster of it. I fell in love. It's been hanging on my wall for a long time now. And when I first saw it, I'm like, I need to have this mini.
Did you get a 3D print it before them?
Yes.
That's funny.
I mean, literally, it was PAX Unplugged last year, 2018, when I saw this Withholder. Instantly, I was like, I love this. I need to use it. And that's when I met V for the first time. V was literally going, like, within minutes of meeting her, to go out to lunch with a friend of hers, pardon me, who designs miniatures to be 3D printed. So she's like, oh, you can come along, talk to Miguel, and, maybe he can do this thing for you. And I'm like, all right, great. So I went and chatted with him. We exchanged information. I had him design the miniature. It wound up getting it printed in a couple different sizes. I, primed it, painted it, and I took it with me to the castle because I loved it that much and I wanted to use it there. It took a while to go through all of these bips and bobs and, whatnot, but it survived the travel to and from England. But I mean, it's been sitting on my shelf since August. And I'm like, you know what? I've got this idea. So while the adventurers were, going around the market and buying all of these great and glorious things, I'm like, how amusing would it be to have creatures that their sole attack is just robbing people and shoving the thing into their mouth and having it disappear. Have them be able to teleport in, teleport out. It's great. So I literally put one monster per player that was there, at the table on the board throughout, multiple rounds of combat. And during its reaction phase, during its, action phase, it was just having, grab attacks at whatever was on them. If it was in their hands, on their belt, easily grabbable. Like I can't take your armor, I can't take your shirt, but hats, helmets, weapons, belt pouches, the sentient magical goblin head that's hanging on the sorcerer's belt, that kind of stuff.
You should have made us wait until the lunar market to get it back, because then they would have really been scared about not getting it back. I think that would have ratcheted up the suspense, and then also the session would have ended, and they still wouldn't have had their stuff.
I debated, but that would not have fit the giving theme that I was in the mood for. I mean, literally, you guys showed up, and I had all the adventurers around a Christmas tree, just on the battle map. The tree was there for no reason whatsoever, but it was the Christmas session. It's December. Deal with it. So the whole battle, not a single damage was done to the party. But every time they did a melee attack on the creature, they were making strength saving throws. and DCs weren't exactly light. So it definitely went in the favor of the GM of, all right, how many items did I walk away with when all the creatures were finally dropped?
Can people find the withholder stats anyplace?
I don't know if it's online, but if you get I don't know, there's a deck of monsters, maybe two, I believe, has the withholder in it. But the stats that I use were definitely not the stats that it uses, because that thing is only like a CR3. But I've definitely ratcheted up my own version, because it's normally only a medium, and the one that I've got medium and large, but the one that I use is size large, because that's the one that's painted and ready to go.
So Dead Aussie Gamer wanted to know what is our favorite third party monsters. I kind of chimed in the chat. I thought you might have been describing yours now. You've used that thing at least 3 times, right?
No, that was only the second time I've used the withholder.
Didn't you use it against the kids in the kids game?
I don't think so.
I thought you described using it against them, but I was not there, so I could be wrong.
If I did, I don't remember it.
I'll check with Billy. So, do you have a favorite third party monster?
I'm gonna have to say the withholder at this point in time. It's the lore that they have on it, and when I've used it, the way that it's described, it's definitely it definitely ramps up the tension and has a little bit of fun. When I used it in the castle, like, the players were freaking the frick out. They had just gone through this fight and they had killed a green dragon, and they're standing over this treasure hoard that's there, and they hear this weird noise and like, I don't know what that is. What do we do? What do we do? And like, they're like, well, I don't want to leave all of this treasure, so I gave them like a round by round change as they hear this sucking sound, like wind moving through a tunnel, and then all of a sudden, the thing pops out of nowhere, and as soon as it appears in the middle of the pile of treasure, the 10 hands on this thing just begin shoving fistfuls of gold and magic items and whatever it can grab into its mouth. And the 5 players were just like dumbstruck, because number one, they had never seen anything like this in any of the times that they've played D&D. The setup that I had done, I don't want to say it was perfect, but was pretty awesome. And, when you throw veteran players for, a loop and they don't know what to expect here, they didn't know, like, should we run or should we fight? So eventually they wound up fighting, and, it had fun. It was eating treasure the whole time. It was slapping them, doing a little bit of damage here and there. But its real impact was when it exploded in a fireball of bludgeoning damage from all the items that it ate.
I don't know. I think the real impact was the players were like, "It's eating all of our treasure." Like, that's when the real horror sets in for the players, right? When it's eating all of their treasure.
Well, they were definitely shocked, and the fact that it went from a green dragon to here's this gigantic orange arm monster. It was pretty awesome.
Yeah. So for I don't know if I don't know if I have one. Because I just tend to use the D&D monsters, or I make up my own, and generally I make them up on the fly. Although I'm very intrigued with the silliness of a monster in the Creature Codex, which is literally, it's a I guess it's considered an ooze, but it's literally a giant fishbowl filled with treasure at the bottom of it, and a shark, and it's one creature, and it's ridiculous.
Yep.
So
I haven't used that one yet, but
I have not used it yet either. I've used the little krakens from the Toma Beast. Was it a Toma Beast or was it? I think it's in Toma Beast.
The Crake Spawn?
Yeah, the Crake Spawn.
Yeah, I want to say it's TOB.
I've used them. They're they were fun to use. I especially like how I was able to work them in, and that was in our Spelljammer game. And I actually had a Kraken that spit them out and launched them at the ship that you guys were piloting.
Yeah.
The Kraken was basically being used as a ship by Skro, and a couple of the tentacles were acting as catapults, and they would just sling flail snails at you guys as catapult boulders. Yeah. So that was kind of fun, but yeah, I guess I'm kind of a traditionalist. I like the traditional D&D monsters and the stuff, and I like this. And I like coming up with stuff on my own.
I definitely use a lot of homebrew stuff. It's for me. It's partly because I enjoy the creative process, and partly because I game with you guys with veterans that like I don't want you guys knowing what it is. I want you thinking on your feet and second guessing yourselves and wondering.
Bless you, being surprised.
So I mean that's that's all part and parcel, and like there are times that I've used monsters and somebody's like, oh well, I use this thing, and as a GM or as a person, I think, well, okay, well, are they using it because that's their go-to, or because they know that, oh well, this creature is susceptible or vulnerable to that particular damage type? And how many times can you pretend to not know what a troll's regeneration weaknesses are? And it's like,
well, with my family game, that's kind of fun because they don't know. And they did fight. What kind of troll did I use? Oh, I used the venom troll on them, and it just kept getting back up. Like they would just keep chopping it up, and they didn't know what to do. And then they're like, "We could throw it off that cliff back there," but they're like, "Oh, the village of Myconids is down there." And if they left it and ran away, I was definitely going to have it hunt them down. So eventually, they did decide to try burning it.
Yeah, it's the thing. Like, trolls are amazing. They are great, and they are a considerable threat. But like I've been doing this for 25 plus years. You've been doing it for longer. There's only so many times that I can have to pretend. Well, okay, well, what would this character do? When you fight the troll.
Yeah, you're like, I cut it up more. Oh, that's not working.
And I mean, I remember in in the earlier editions where when you did cut it up, it spawned more trolls.
So Shane has a question: when running political campaign, how many factions do you use, or does it vary on the setting? I would say it's going to vary on the setting, and I mean, if you look at Eberron, one of the great things about Eberron, there's like all kinds of threats, but they're also factions at the same time. Forgotten Realms has a ton of factions in them. Eberron really just introduced the idea of the patron for the players, for the adventuring party, or even becoming their own, which in itself is kind of like a faction. Whether you choose one that's already existing or you make up your own, you're in essence creating a new faction.
Right.
So it just really depends on what setting you're playing in, or if you're using your own. If you're using your own, it's going to be what makes sense to the campaign world that you've created.
So I will say this: the more factions that you create, the more objectives and things that need to happen or could happen. It can get daunting if you're trying to think about all of the machinations that are in process. So I would start off with 3 and see how well you handle that before you want to wind up adding any more. I haven't run a political game in a long time. I tend to do more of the more of the standard adventure story arcs over political stuff. Uh, but it's definitely something to look at and to consider.
But I feel like I believe Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica has a lot of advice on that because you have all the guilds in it. So it's also another good example of a setting that uses a lot of them, and it's kind of baked into the setting and is intended to be used.
So we have a final question. I don't know if you want to handle this before we head out because it is already after 9. But Billy Clark wants to know if we've ever considered running any charity games.
We've thought about it, and it's something we'll probably do at some point. But we don't stream as many games as we used to, and I mean we're always interested in taking part in them and helping out wherever we can or promoting them. But who knows? It might be something we look at. We have Nerdarchy the convention going up next year, and we were thinking about trying to figure out how to do some things with charity with that as well. Which I won't bore you with the gory details of. We have contractual things that we have to figure out as far as to what we're allowed to do with the venue that we're using. But that was definitely something we had talked about. And as Nerdarchy becomes more profitable as a business, we do want to turn our eye towards where we can give back. Up to this point, we kind of just been eking by. So we felt like we should start working more towards charity and helping charities as we become less of a charity case ourselves. Has been kind of the philosophy. When we decide to do it, we want to be 100% behind doing the charity and trying to build the charity and not just using that as a way to garner more attention for ourselves. We want to be very authentic when we do that. But yes, that is definitely something that is on our radar, probably for 2020. So with that, like Ted said, we are at the end. We're just past 9 o'clock. And next week we'll be back for the Patreon exclusive on Monday. So if you happen to be a patron, you can come hang out with us. We're taking Christmas Eve off because of our families will hold a mutiny if we do not. But we'll be back the following week for New Year's Eve. So we will come in, and I believe it's going to be all 3 of us, me, Ted, and Doug, and we were going to be rocking into New Year's with you guys. Well, maybe not quite exactly, but it won't be a marathon stream. But we're going to spend some time with you folks anyway.
And I will throw out there, if you're looking for something to do Friday night, you can come back here to the YouTube channel and come check out the episode 3 of the RPG Crate game.
Awesome. So with that, until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.